Well, the top sides of Raybel has been more or less completely replaced. The decks, the rails, the top frames, the covering boards, cappings, the quarter boards, all completely replaced. A few little bits of original decking exist, but mainly it's been replaced with either a PP or Douglas fir. The coamings are still as intact, we left them, but we're replacing the leading around them at the moment, and Roger's working on that. All the deck machinery has been scrubbed and painted with enamels to keep them rust free. We've got some hatches back on, and we've made a completely new hatch, a new lantern hatch for the engine room, which is just being welded up as we speak.
I'm Roger.
Yeah.
I'm a one-day-a-week volunteer, at the moment involved in putting the lead flashings around the coamings.
And how long have you been volunteering on Raybel?
Since the January 2020. I came down before Christmas when the Raybel arrived, and then volunteered and started in the January. This is a lead flashing, and it seals the joint between the coamings, which is this piece, and the deck, to stop any water getting in the gap which is inevitably going to be in there.
So it's really neat, and there's a lot of nails.
There's a load of nails. There's probably more money spent on nails than lead. And we cut it into 3 metre lengths because that's probably about the limit that you can handle once it's stretched out and it's folded. So we used a little jig that I made up there to fold it on.
So basically the top of the barge looks absolutely wonderful. At the bows, all the timber framing has been replaced, and that looks really fantastic. That's just waiting to be smoothed off, faired with the electric planes. All the holes will be filled with epoxy resin, then they'll be sanded off, and finally we'll get a nice big thick coat of lovely black varnish.
Much, a little bit. That's too much.
Yeah, it should be back a bit fractured. Be about there.
but actually spacing these planks over each other and fix them onto the frames, making sure the fixings go properly into the frames, very complicated. And another thing you want to do is that, of course, the barge, as it comes to the front, it's narrower, and then it gets broader as it gets towards the chine. So designing the planks so that they all look even and you don't end up with any funny shaped planks is quite a skill, and they've done a fantastic job of getting the planks looking really splendid. And if we look at the front of the boat, you can see how they look perfectly even. In fact, they're all very complex shapes which the shipwrights had to spile out and work that out.
This barge comprises of 3 layers. So there's the original 2 layers which make up 3 inches, and then there's a layer of 1.1 inches from the outside of that, which is the doubling to marry up with the existing doubling that was done sometime in the 40s. Now when it was done in the 40s, the doubling was not done in a particularly attractive way, in as much as the runs of planking didn't follow the line of the vessel. They were narrow in places and much too wide in others. So we split the area up and ensured that we got the lines of planking as they should be.
It's very elegant because it's got this sort of like lovely curve to it now, hasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, what you'll find is that once it's all cleaned up and tarred, the lines of the planks will accentuate the shape of the barge and will make it look better.
The bottom of the barge is held onto the keel with big bolts, and those similar bolts go through the chine, through the sides and through the chines down to the bottom. The volunteers have been starting the process of removing those bolts. It's a lot more complicated than it seems. Some of the bolts are solid, so it's just been a matter of applying perhaps 10 tons of force with a jack and a hammers to force them down. Other bolts are withered in the middle, so in fact when you try to hammer them they just collapse in on each other. So that's no good, you have to be able to pull them out. So what we've been doing is a mixture of techniques of knocking them out slightly so we can grab hold of one end, or later on we'll be welding bits on that we can grab hold of and pulling them out like that. And using all different sorts of techniques, jacks, hammers, big drifts to drive them down. And some of them have come up beautifully easily and will be replaced easily. Others are being absolute swines and they're going to take a lot more work to get out.
Yay! Oh, that's really short of that one.
Well done, chaps.
I'm just a helper on the barge. My name's Jim Woodard, I'll put it in properly. And I just help out. I'm an ex-mechanic and I love playing with nuts, bolts and all that sort of stuff. So working with a team like this, a bunch of lads, is absolutely brilliant. We're trying to get under here, under this piece, the keel, there's a load of bolts and they've been in there since the barge was built, I assume. And we've been cutting all the nuts off and driving the bolts out with a jack so that we can actually get them out as best we can.
So how long does it take you to get one of these bolts out?
These ones,
Yeah.
Keel bolts you'd probably get about 4 in a day normally. Today we've got 7, but the chine bolts will be all down one bolt. So sometimes, just depends on your luck.
And how many have you got to do?
Oh, God knows, there must be loads of them. I don't know, how many Mark? How many Keel bolts are there?
100.
Must be around about 100, yeah.
This one. The other winch on the other side, crab winch, they're handed, so they both live on the specific sides of the barge. This one had a broken foot, which we made a new foot, bolted and welded that on. We completely cleaned them down, undercoated and top coated them. And the one on the other side had this bar missing, so we replaced that bar as well. When they came off of the Raybel, they were the same hand, which meant that you had to wind them, one of them in the wrong direction. Well, we changed that. I think it's the other one over this side. We move this pull from this side to that side, and that makes the whole thing the other hand. Brilliant. These are used for raising and lowering the lee boards as and when it's required. And this, believe it or not, which slips around one of these bars, is the brake. It's a bit heat provinces, but we went for a sail on the Edith May and they do work, although this is probably one of the most dangerous bits of equipment on the whole barge.
And what about over here? This sort of like greenhouse thing that you've built?
Well, I call it a greenhouse. It's, I think Mark calls it a lantern... Lantern hatch! A lantern hatch, there you are. Designed by Tim. Apparently is quite unique. Nothing else exists like it on any other barge. And when it's finished, it will have timber on the top and 2 opening glazed flaps on either side, which are hinged to give air down into the engine room. Across here and here will be wooden seats for spectators to sit upon. And then, if we move around here, Raybel will have a compass, which I think you already have, seated about here. The Morse controls for the engine will be here. And inside, these pieces make up a sliding hatch in the front. Inside here will be VHF radio and with the electrics and the starting mechanism for the engine.
What have you been doing, James?
This.
It's a lovely job. Very nice. Well done, sir.
Okay job, I think.
Must be satisfying though.
It is, yeah. It'd be good to get it in the water.
Right.
I think it's good that we've reused off-cuts from Raybel, which is good, so we haven't got any sort of new wood. It's good to use what's left over.
Brilliant, all recycling. Super.
Quite a few things there you've talked about, jobs which have been done by the volunteers, basically. Yeah.
Oh, completely. That said, we do have an exceptionally good bunch of fellas. A very broad range of skills through marine crafts, general engineering, mechanics, electrics. Wonderful range of guys willing to just get stuck in. And of all those talents, of course, the most important one is enthusiasm. and a can-do attitude. They just get stuck into a job, whatever it is, start the job, gosh, this is hard, yes, but just keep going. And really, it just really demonstrates what stamina you need to do any kind of wooden boat work.